r/ProRevenge.
Don't want to let me tinker? Alrightly then, let's do business then. A lot of people like this story, so I decided to create a subreddit that is dedicated to sharing stories of about grandmas and grandpas. Feel free to post your story. https://www.reddit.com/r/nana_n_papa. My grandpa was a successful man, and in his mid-60s he decided he wanted to take a step back, so he started selling off his businesses. He sold his various businesses and spent the next few years traveling. As he approached 70, he got bored in addition to a few new grandchildren, so he needed a bigger house. He sold the old home that he had bought after he got back from Vietnam and bought this massive house on this large piece of land. This property also came with a massive steel barn, looked like this. https://www.bucksteel.com/wp-content/upload/2021/04/metalbarn01.jpg. Not sure if he had ever told anyone about his plans, but right after he got the property he dumped a ton of money into tools and equipment and converted his barn into a mechanic's dream. Some things I remember having. He had a professional lift, capable of lifting full-size trucks. He had those professional oil catchers you see at Quick Lubes. He had a dedicated air compressor system that was designed to power all his power tools. He had a tire machine, to mount new tires. He had so much equipment. His tool corner was a massive corner of this massive barn. His plan? To fix cars, especially for people in need. He lived in a rural community. If you didn't have a car, that was a big problem. So he let everyone know at his local church that he was willing to work on their cars if they provided the parts. He only took a few jobs a week. He was doing this to enjoy himself and help those that needed it. He'd of course change oil, change the transmission fluid, and all kinds of various repairs. My grandpa was a talented mechanic. However, he kept the amount of work limited. He was also selective. If you were in need, he'd want to fix your cars. If you had the means to pay, he'd decline and ask you to go elsewhere. One day the owner of the local car dealership came by and told my grandpa he needed to stop fixing other people's cars cause he wasn't properly licensed, didn't have the proper insurances, and was hurting his business. My grandpa explained this is just his hobby, he only does a few cars a week. The owner told him he needs to cut it out, or he's going to sue my grandpa out of business. My grandpa said he laughed over this. What business was this guy going to sue him out of? The owner walked out. A little while later my grandpa got served. He was being sued by the owner of the car dealership. My grandpa thought he'd take a trip down to the dealership and try and reason with the man. My grandpa hoped he could come to an understanding. My grandpa spoke to the owner and basically explained. He only works on people cars who are down on their luck. The fact is the people cars he fixes probably couldn't afford to pay a professional dealership to fix their vehicle. He only does a few cars a week. He's not all that interested in getting into a fight over his hobby, but he ain't going back down. Well, they ended up in court. By this point, my grandpa had hired a lawyer, who was able to get the city to approve a commercial garage on his property. It helped that he lived on the outskirts of town, and had 6 acres of property. The court told my grandpa his auto repair shop is operating illegally. If my grandpa wants to continue, he's going to need to get a business license, get the proper insurances, and if he does that, he will be good to go. Now, what do you think a man who has nothing but time and money in this situation is going to do? He's going to get his business license and insurances, of course. Which he did, and that surprised no one. But he went further. Got a dedicated phone line ran into his shop. Hired a full-time mechanic. Put up a professional sign. Set up a little waiting area with a water cooler. What shocked everyone even more? He ran a local TV ad, saying he was a pay-what-you-can mechanic shop, reservations only. Put ads in the local paper, saying the same thing. Yes, folks, that's right, my grandpa is not only a licensed, legal auto repair business. He has a certified mechanic on his payroll. And he's running ads. As for his prices, they were quite simple. You either bring the parts yourself, and pay the mechanic whatever you wanted. Mechanic got a separate wage from my grandpa, so if you couldn't pay anything that was fine. Had my grandpa source the parts, he'd charge at you parts and you'd pay the mechanic whatever you want. My grandpa started taking jobs, and boy did that shop gets busy. It was impossible to beat grandpa's price. Grandpa was essentially paying to fix your car for you. My grandpa would spend his days with the mechanic that he had hired working on cars. He loved it. The owner of the local car dealership was furious. He sued my grandpa again. They went to court and the judge basically said my grandpa owned a licensed, insured, auto repair business. What he charges his customers for his services is completely up to him. Even if that means doing the work for free. About a year or so later, my grandpa gets a call from a lawyer who says he's representing a potential buyer of the local car dealership. However, the buyer wants to speak to my grandpa. My grandpa agreed. He sat down with the new potential buyer who expressed his concerns about buying the dealership. Service is a major profit center for a dealership, and he's considering buying the local dealership. However, he doesn't want to buy the dealership if my grandpa is going to keep operating the way he is, cause it's impossible for a for-profit business to compete against someone selling their services for free. My grandpa agrees that there's no way someone looking to make a profitable business could ever compete against him. So they came to an agreement. The owner buys the dealership and my grandpa would only work on a few cars a week, maybe 5 to 6. Only work on people cars who are down on their luck and probably too poor to be able to pay a professional dealership to fix their car. Any parts he needs he will buy from the dealership. Any work he declined, he'd refer to the dealership. The new owner of the dealership agreed too. Dealership must agree to let my grandpa stay out of his way. Dealership must hire his mechanic. They shook hands. The local dealership was bought out, and for the next 9 years my grandpa would fix people's cars who were down on their luck. If he had to buy parts he'd buy from the dealership, and as for that mechanic my grandpa hired, he ended up becoming the service manager and did quite well for himself. As for my grandpa, when he was 80 he had a heart attack in his shop. Luckily one of his grandkids was there and they got him to the hospital and he made a full recovery. But the doctor told him his body couldn't handle working in the garage anymore. He ended up shutting down after that. For the next 3 years he looked out his kitchen window staring at his shop, remembering all the fun he had in his garage. He passed away at 83 surrounded by friends and family. TL. Dear Grandpa just wanted to fix some cars. The local dealership got mad at him cause he was crushing them, sued him. My grandpa got serious, put them out of business, and made a deal with the new owner of the dealership that he would still operate, but at a level that the owner could still make a profit so long as they let my grandpa be. /u/dangerous. Abracoma504 did an excellent job reading of this story on their YouTube channel. If you want this in audio format, go check it out. https://www.youtube.com/watch. V equals me 91 Coj FM.
A response to the post.
I like that when people have FU money they use it for good unselfish deeds.
Peace response to this comment.
He did have FU money. My dad was concerned with the fact that my grandpa was paying a mechanic a full-time wage, yet not bringing in any revenue to even offset the mechanic's cost. My grandpa said, "Son, I could write that man, the mechanic, a check right now, so large that he could live comfortably for the rest of his life, and never work again. So don't worry about what I'm paying him." My grandpa was a successful businessman, but he always had compassion. He did a lot of things throughout his life for the benefit of others. He once told me, he believed in karma and what goes around comes around. So if he helps someone out, even that person can never repay him. One day, some way he will get repaid. I'm just rambling. But as an example, there was this family, husband/wife, 3 kids. Well, the husband was killed in a car accident. The wife was struggling to make ends meet. At the time my grandpa owned a grocery store. For the first month after her husband passing, my grandpa refused to charge her for the groceries she bought. The woman got a job. It didn't pay a lot, but it was a job. She insisted she pay. My grandpa agreed, but she'd get a 50% discount. Any grocery store that is giving a 50% discount on everything is losing money. When she got promoted at her job several years later, my grandpa went back to charging her full price.
A response to the post.
Man, your Gamps is a saint.
A response to the post.
I love thinking that the shop owner probably had to sell cheap because of the slow business Gramps put him in.
OP's response to this comment.
I imagine so, but I don't know what the dealership was sold for. However, my grandpa said right after the sit down with the new owner immediately purchased the dealership. I'm sure the new owner got a deal cause of my grandpa.